The time for empty talk is over. It's going to be great.
Yo guys, what's going on? And welcome back to episode 10 of the Pint&Politics podcast. Bit different today, we're doing it over Zoom with it being locked down. And we've got Luke back as well. How you doing, Luke?
Yeah, not too bad, how are you?
Good. And we've got a new guest in, Harry, today. You alright, Harry?
How are you doing, guys?
Good. So, before we do get into it, as usual, we'll go through what we're drinking. So, I'm drinking a raspberry gin, Smith's one. I've got no beer, so I've had to nick Alex's gin. So, what about you, Luke? What you got?
Got a Coors Light, standard stuff. Not had it on the podcast before, so keeping my streak going of unique beers, so it should be good.
Alright, and Harry, what you got? What you got, Harry?
Yeah, just like...
Got Coors Light as well.
Oh, you both got
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like an outsider now. There we go. Anyway, so getting it started, Harry, how did you actually get into politics? Because I don't think we've actually asked you this question. Like, how you actually got into it?
Don't know, to be honest. I think I studied at A-level, and that's like, I guess I chose it as like, it was a new subject or whatever, and I think that's where it kind of started. But obviously my brother did at A-level as well, and I remember speaking to him about like 2014 election, I think it was. Stuff like that back then, so, don't know. Kind of gradually got into it over time. There's never been like one point where I've been like, suddenly straight into politics, whatever. But
yeah. So what? At the last election, then, who did you actually vote for?
Conservative Party.
Oh, okay. That's some abuse coming in there, I feel. So what actually made you vote for Boris then? What actually made you vote Tory?
Don't know. Can't say I was a big fan of Corbyn. You know, he's a very divisive figure already, but don't know, to be honest.
Is it?
Obviously, we didn't have anything like coronavirus then, but it was more just like economic policies, I get, and I thought he'd handled Brexit better.
Yeah. Would you say?
But whether or not he's actually done that yet, I think it's hard to say.
Would you say you'd usually vote Tory anyway, or would you usually vote Labour, or is it?
Yeah, I'd probably usually vote Tory, but I could swing for Labour, I guess, if they have a good enough candidate. Like, maybe, Tony Blair, maybe. Pre-war.
Yeah. Like, more centrist kind of policies.
Is it completely Labour or is it Conservative?
I'd say I'm more Conservative.
Yeah, and your constituency, is it more...
Well, it was Lib Dem for ages, actually, but that was because it was like people voted Lib Dem to stop Labour getting in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of students, because it's near Headingley as well, which is where a lot of students in Leeds live. It's now it's now a Labour seat after the last election.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Alex Doble, I think.
Yeah.
MP.
Yeah.
Similar to that Sheffield Hallam, isn't it? Well, this area. I think we have a Labour MP now as well.
Yeah, it seems to flicker, to be honest, between like Labour and Lib Dem, I think. But the last mayor was the Green Party candidate, the last mayor. So
That's surprising.
yeah. So getting into matters more of what's happening today, coronavirus. So we're now into our second lockdown. It's supposed to end December 2nd, but whether it will or not, who knows. We looked before today. There's been about 361 deaths today. So, Luke, I'll start with you. Boris's handling of the coronavirus so far, how would you rate it? Good points, bad points, and then whatever.
For me, I think it's been a complete disaster. Compared to a lot of... It's hard to compare countries because every country's situation is different. For example, like the Netherlands are going to be completely different to somewhere in Italy, which they've been hit quite hard with this. I don't know much about the official statistics at the moment in Italy, but in terms of England, we've definitely taken our foot off the gas in terms of the restrictions. I mean, talking towards the start, if you're going to put us in lockdown, do it straight away to avoid the spread of the virus. Or just do what Sweden's done and just go for herd immunity, which I personally would have gone for. But I know it's been a complete disaster by Boris. I think that him getting corona is definitely a mitigating factor because I think it messed with his head. He almost died from it, and obviously he's gone way over the top with the restrictions, in my opinion. And with stuff like Eat Out to Help Out, I think that's helped the not helped, but I think it's been one of the reasons why the cases have gone up. Also, not to blame like us because we're uni students. I think uni students are possibly to blame as well for the spread of the virus in big cities like Liverpool, Manchester. I don't know if you've seen it, but they've obviously put that fence around the uni accommodation in Manchester. I don't know. That's just like don't agree with that whatsoever. I know you're allowed out, but it just looks so bad. But I think it's been an absolute disaster.
What about you, Harry? Because you were actually the one who put in the group chat, weren't you, about the Uni of Manchester students getting walled in?
Yeah, I got some mates that go Uni of Manchester, and they were sending me pictures of that, and it looked to be mad. But I think that was done by the uni itself. I don't think that was government related at all. I think that was just the people that run the accommodation trying to like get them to stay inside or whatever. But a couple hours later, and like in the evening or whatever, they were literally lighting off like flares and shit, and then tearing down the fences. I don't know. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah. No, you can say whatever you want.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. But yeah, I think that didn't last long at all. It only lasted a matter of like 12 hours. But have you seen the stuff today about we're getting like an evacuation time apparently to go home for December?
Oh no, I haven't seen that. No.
Between the 9th and the 14th today, I think students are going to be told to go, if they're going to go back home for the holidays, go back home pretty much.
Okay.
But
that'll definitely affect you two more. But I'm living at home this year, so obviously that won't affect me. But yeah, I don't know if you lot were going home or not.
I probably will for December time, but I don't know if I'll go back in that time slot.
Yeah, I'm saying with that. I think that's too early for me to go home, to be honest. But yeah, I don't think I'd go home in that time slot. So Harry,
I think the plan is for all teaching to be moved online for them. But
yeah, well, I mean, it is kind of already, isn't it?
I mean, for us, yeah. I mean, our course is online. So.
Yeah, I think there are some courses that still do have some face-to-face, but I'm guessing they've got to be courses with very little people on it.
I know. Do you know stuff with like labs and stuff? Like one of my course mates does chemical engineering. He did a foundation year. Like he's in his first year now.
Yeah.
But technically, yeah. He's got to be going to like a few labs or stuff, but he's literally the only one in the house that's had to go into uni.
Oh Jesus.
Wow.
So, rating Boris's his kind of reaction to COVID, Harry, how would you put it? Would you have followed, like Luke said, the Sweden model, or would you have gone more of like a New Zealand, Australia, or?
I think with coronavirus, it's completely individual to the country because a lot of it's based on how the people react to social distancing and like what type of society you live in. Because America, they don't really like to follow big government rules on shit like that.
Yeah.
I think the UK, we should have probably been more precautious at the start of it, but I think the inevitable second peak, which scientists kept going on about, I think that was going to happen no matter what, especially with when you're sending people back to uni and stuff, you already have precious flu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's it was kind of inevitable. Do I think this second lockdown's necessary? I don't think they gave the tier system. I feel like they just didn't give that enough time as well because it happened for about 2 or 3 weeks max before we went into a lockdown.
It looks like a deluxe paint job, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I just said I would have given the tier system more time because there was a drop in deaths and infection rate, the R number in Liverpool, I think, which was in the highest tier for the longest amount of time. I know there's a lot of campaigning for gyms to open up again. I understand closing bars and restaurants, but places like a gym where apparently the rate of infection is really minimal, I guess open them up. But I think he's followed a lot of what he's done is just follow sage, and can you really blame him for that? I guess he's not an expert, he's not an epidemiologist. I think for a lot of people to criticise him like he has, I think the only massive problem was not sacking Dominic Cummings. back in summer.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about that, and I even said back then a lot of people are going to forget about it, and I mean they have. Like 24-hour news cycle. Now the vaccine's on its way. I don't know if you guys have heard about the company that made the vaccine.
Is it Pfizer?
Yeah, it's a bit dodgy. Like some of the stuff they've done before, like they increased a epilepsy drug by like 2,500% the price of it. So I think they're very much like a profiteering drug company, which is like fair enough. I mean, they're in the business to make money, but I think the restrictions they'll have on it will be perfectly fine, hopefully. But I think we're like the test nation, aren't we? Because we're the one with the most ahead virus so far, vaccine.
Yeah. It is interesting. I think they said it's 90% effective, I think, the other day, because then all the stock markets rocketed up at the news of that. But it's kind of a difficult one with Corona, because it's... What do you do? Because the more you keep artificially suppressing the virus, the more it's going to kind of stay around. So it's the longer these restrictions are going to go. And then obviously you've got to think about economic damage. Like that's the whole thing about being a public policy maker. You've got to weigh it up. Because if it was all about saving one life and whatever, then you'd reduce all motorway speed limits to 5 miles an hour. You know, we take that risk as a society to say, look, yes, more people are going to die, but it means people can get places faster and whatever. But it's whether a more targeted approach, maybe for those in care homes and those that are older, maybe. But I don't see that with the more at the moment, in my opinion, the more we keep artificially suppressing it, the longer it's going to stay around. And I don't know whether I trust the government, to be honest, to give up some of the powers they've given themselves. But I think if you go to the other logical extreme, like Australia or New Zealand, so they're going for like the kind of get rid of it strategy. So put everyone in lockdown and hopefully the virus will go away. I think that's good for the short term. But once you start getting into, in a couple of years' time, and you're going to have to open up international travel again for either business, tourism, whatever, well, you've kind of screwed yourself because they can't. It's more or less physically impossible to vaccinate 8 billion people in the world. It'd be nice to do it, but I think it's logistically impossible. So, and it only takes a couple of them to start a new epidemic in New Zealand, for instance, because they haven't got any immunity. But I don't know. I could be wrong. They could get a vaccine and vaccinate New Zealand and do it that way. But
the problem is with the herd immunity, especially with COVID, the reinfection rate is something they worry about.
Yeah.
So it's not like the average flu where you get it once and then you could be all right. I think you can get it more than once, but I think it dropped drastically though after the first time you get it. I mean, it's already like the chance of death is already for a healthy person like 99% chance you're not going to die.
Yeah.
But I don't know what second time around. It's just it hasn't been around long enough for a lot of scientists to do all the research they need to do on it.
Yeah, it's only been a matter of months since it started. Obviously, so that's spiraling out of control. But yeah.
What do you think about? Because there's obviously some concern about the vaccine from people saying it's been rushed, and so I think the BBC did a poll a couple of weeks ago, or it might have been over a couple of months, about I think it was a third of the general public wouldn't take the vaccine or something. So what do you two think? Either about that, should they be kind of forced to, or I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think anyone should be forced to take anything, to be honest. It's a hard one because obviously if you take the vaccine, you're probably never going to get it again. But some people are just got a phobia of taking stuff that they don't know what they're taking. They just don't trust where it's come from. They just don't trust anything in general in terms of the vaccine. It isn't just for vaccine with coronavirus. It could just be flu jab, tetanus jab. It's you can't force for people to take it, but obviously in an ideal world it would be nice because it would just eliminate the risk completely. But it's just people's choice at the end of the day. I'm not going to force anyone to do what they don't want to do. You know what I mean?
How libertarian of you.
Very libertarian.
I mean, I agree. I don't think you should be forced to, but I think the problem is nowadays that there was like so much stuff about 2-3 years ago, and like I don't know how long it's been around for, but anti-vaxxers.
Yeah,
where, like,
that's kind of a new
people
phenomenon.
are like, oh, vaccinations give you autism.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Sorry, what'd you say? But it's like that whole negative like stigmatism that comes with someone that's not anti-vaxxer but like is questioning the vaccine. As soon as you question it, you're like automatically labelled as like an anti-vaxxer and like a moron basically, just because you don't want to like put this thing in your body that's not been around them. I mean, there's still like people like scientists and shit saying today they don't know the real effects of vaping and stuff like that. So long term,
3 years, you can't like test the lifetime like effects of it because it's only been prominent for less than probably 5 years. Obviously, smoking and cigarettes, they've been around for decades. They've been around for centuries, and so there's been a lot more studies, a lot more cases of like links to heart disease, liver disease, and all that. Not liver, but lung disease. That's the one. But yeah, I mean, it'll just come with time, I think. With like just that, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think
the other problem is
Wait, go on, Harry. Go on.
No, I was just saying, have you ever watched that Joe Rogan podcast with Alex Jones?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So they talk a bit about the Bill Gates vaccination and that stuff like that, and how the people that have had it, some of them have had like pretty negative side effects. The problem is with coronavirus already is that if you get it to high risk people, if a high risk person gets coronavirus, they're obviously high risk, so they have anything like a viral infection that bad, it's going to like harm them a lot.
Yeah.
But if you give someone a vaccine with a side effect that's got similar things to coronavirus, it's like I don't know. It's hard to like put across, but you're kind of like setting them up for failure almost. If you're giving someone high risk this thing with a side effect, if they got that side effect, they're probably going to die. So I just feel like when they put it in, and when it passes all the UK guidelines and shit, they have to make it sure so there's no risk of side effects, or the side effect is like minimal already.
I think you can have legitimate questions about it because people are gonna say, well, what are the lifetime effects? Because we've with things like Operation Warp Speed under the Trump administration, they're developing a vaccine in under a year. That's that's unheard of. It takes years, if not a decade, usually, to get anything close to something safe. So people are going, well, how do I know in 10 years' time I'm not going to have something wrong with it? And the question is, well, we don't know. But it's what kind of it's kind of to what end is it? Do we get through this vaccine and make it as safe as we possibly can now and then take it, or do we leave it 10 years and then go, oh well, it is safe after all that, and then everyone's been out of a job for 10 years, economies are ruined. It's that balance, I guess, you've got to get, and you've probably got to pick a side. But I think you can have legitimate questions about it. But I think, again, there are still extremes to that. Like, say, people are like, oh no, I'm not going to give it, gives my kid autism. But
yeah,
I think that's I think that's pretty stupid. But I mean, I've seen some people saying that those people who refuse to take it shouldn't be allowed in kind of general society, or shouldn't allow like the kids to go to public schools. So it's like fine, if you want to be an anti-vaxxer, fine. But if that's what you want, well, your kid's not coming near our kids. So I don't know.
Then you could become like an outcast from social circles and society, I guess. Yeah. Because if you put like an e-passport or whatever it's called, I mean, it's like the whole thing of like, people have been fearing it for years, like cashless society, watchdog government, the Orwellian society almost, where you can't come into this cafe, you can't come into this pub unless you've had this vaccine. I don't think you should be forced to take a vaccine. I don't think you should be registered that you're taking it or not. I mean, obviously, like, you should have medical records saying you've had it.
But not like public records, where anyone can just say, well, he's had it, he's not had it. So, yeah.
I think it's a bit like, you know when you go to like India or places like that, you have to get your jabs.
Yeah.
I think it's almost a bit like that. Like, you know, maybe if you're leaving the country or something, you should be told to get the vaccine, and you know, because it guaranteed like people. You get like the complete Alex Jones end of the scale conspiracy theorists, where they're like, "Oh, none of the elite will get this vaccine." You just know they will. Like,
well, even the head of the coronavirus task force in the US, that Dr. Fauci, he said he will take it like basically live on TV, kind of like I think Elvis did it with a polio vaccine in like the 50s or something, and apparently the rates went from like 2% to like 80% just because he did it on TV. Something like that. So, but who knows? I think one of our guys has said it as well. One of our chief medical officers said he'll take it. So,
what, Chris Whitty or another one? Or...
I think one of those two, or either another government minister, has said, "Look, I will take it."
Yeah.
So, but I think, in fact, I saw a meme on Facebook. Someone said that they should let politicians take it first, because if it's safe, then we're all safe, and if they die, then we're safe as well. So, but, I don't know. So, thinking on coronavirus now, how do you two see us getting out of this? How do you two see it ending? What about you, Luke? You start us off. How do you see ending for us anyway in this country?
I do see an ending. I do see a positive ending. I saw something where the World Health Organization, I can't trust them as far as I can quote them, to be honest, but they said that it'd be over in 2 years, and they said that a few months ago. But for me personally, I'd like to see there is a positive ending to this. Like, if there's a vaccine, or if the virus just dies out, or just fades into nothingness, really. But I do think we'll get back up and running again. I think the economy will hopefully. I'd like to say it would recover, but where it is now, it's probably an all-time low. People are going to lose jobs. People are going to obviously run into financial difficulties. But in terms of the virus, I think it'll be all over within a year in 2021.
And Harry, what about you? What end do you see to this?
I reckon by this time next year, a lot of stuff would have gone back to normal. I think this will be our last national lockdown. I don't think we can sustain another one, to be honest. I don't think the government will do another eat out to help out or anything stupid like that. I mean, that was pretty dumb. I mean, you should have done that at the end of when a vaccine's out and whatever, and half the population's had it, or 2/3 have had it and then immune. Then you can, do eat out to help out, get the economy stimulated again. But yeah, like Luke said, I think it'll be positive in a year's time. But I think the economy wise, that's going to be a slow process to rebuild. And with Brexit as well, we're going to go out with Brexit. Well, we're going to leave Europe in a somewhat stable sense. But now, when we're a bit, we're well like every other country in the world now. Not in the best economic state.
I'm pretty pessimistic myself. I think, well, because he's knocked furlough back to March, hasn't he? So yeah. I'm pretty pessimistic. I think we'll come out on, I think it's December. Is it December 2nd or December 4th? Either one of those two where this lockdown ends. I think we'll come out of that. We'll have a couple of weeks of the tiered system for Christmas, and then back in January or maybe early Feb, I think we'll go back into another one. Because I think it seems to be following a pattern that it's kind of when you come out of lockdown, you ease restrictions. Obviously, the virus rates will go up, and then they panic and go, "Well, virus rates are going up," and it's like, "Well, yeah, you're easing restrictions. That's going to happen." And I think it seems to be every time that's happening, it's like, right, we've got increased restrictions, and then when we let us out, and then they start increasing again. It just seems a bit of a cycle, and I don't know how. I didn't think, to be honest, we were able to sustain probably this lockdown. Because government borrowing's going up and up and up. I think the Bank of England's promising 150 billion of taxpayers' cash is getting pumped into the economy. I can't imagine that's going to be spent well. And then, obviously, we've got Boris's infrastructure plans that he wants to do. That's 250 billion. I think COVID borrowing's going to be 300 billion by the end of the year. And it's, where's all this money going to come from? So to me, I think I only see a couple of ways out. I see there's 3 ways out for me. Either to get that money back, he's going to cut public spending, which he's not going to do because he said he'd go nowhere near austerity again. Either that or he's going to borrow, but he's already borrowing anyway, so there's going to be there's not many people left to borrow from. And then the last one is inflation. So I think he's going to get the old Mugabe money printing machine out and just print his way out of it. So, but again, I mean, inflation is basically a tax on your savings, because if there's more money in the economy, then your savings are worth less. So I think it's going to hit people's savings quite hard. But I can't see many ways out of it. I'm hoping that after this one it's done. But for me, I think it will just keep going on a stage where we'll keep going in and out of lockdowns and new restrictions and things like that. But I'm Captain Pessimistic, so I think it'll go to shit. But I don't know. So. But though, Harry, you did mention Brexit in your little thing there. So
yeah,
obviously, me and Luke have done our stances on Brexit. If you could have voted, which way would you have voted and why in the referendum?
I would have voted to leave. Well, yeah, back in 2016, yeah.
Yeah. What would you have made you wanted to vote leave then? Is there anything in particular about the EU that you dislike, or?
Nothing like immigration policies or anything like proper UKIP, to be honest. It was more like, taking control of our own economy, and it was like the stuff you pay into it compared to the benefits you receive almost. And it's almost like, we're not like a Greece or a, I don't know how to put it, but we're not like the poorest of countries in the EU as well. Like, I believe we could have had success outside of it, to be honest. Yeah. Especially with the rise of like new superpower trades as well, like China, There's China, other places for trade, right?
Yeah, China and India and other markets. Yeah. I mean, it will be interesting to see, because we are edging closer and closer to that deadline. And, we're looking no closer to a deal. Would you prefer a deal, or would you prefer a no deal exit?
Would have preferred a deal to protect, certain things like borders and stuff like that, and crossing between immigration policies and stuff like that, because you want to work in the EU later on in your life, and there are people that are working in other countries from the UK. There are people in the UK that are from the EU, it works vice versa. Would have preferred a deal in that sense as well, and guaranteed at least some of our trade remains, like strawberries from Spain, something like stupid like that. But, just to guarantee that we still have that, Euro relationship.
Do you think
it should still be there? Yeah.
Do you think
should just be cut off after Brexit?
Do you think coming out on a no deal is going to wreck the economy like everybody says? Do you think it's all going to go to pot, or?
No, because I think a lot of the countries still need to trade with us, to be honest. Like, Spain, Germany, France, they're not just going to cut all trade off with us just because we left the EU.
Yeah.
I think we'll start trading with other markets as well, increase other avenues.
Well, we've got trade deals in Japan now, haven't we? I think we've got one elsewhere, I can't remember where, but Japan's definitely on board with us. So that'll be definitely a good partner for us. And probably the US as well. I know Biden just got in as president, but he's all about foreign relations. He won't want to cut ties with us to be stupid to.
So maybe it's time to restart the Commonwealth now, link up with Australia.
Well, you never know. It depends how their economy is doing in COVID, if they're not in any lockdowns or anything. I guess they'll probably argue that on the other side it's just kind of geographic access. With Europe being so close, it just makes it so easy to trade. It's like you said, Harry. I don't see Europe saying no to our entire markets. I mean, I said it to Canute in our things in the very first seminar. I said, I think both sides in the end will probably panic and just create a deal, because I can't see, just take for example car makers, I can't see BMW, Volkswagen, Renault, Peugeot, whoever, Audi, saying to, being told by the EU, oh yeah, you're going to have a 20% tariff on your cars now when you send them to Britain, one of their biggest car markets. No, they're going to have Juncker's bollocks on a chopping board. They're going to say, no, you are going to do us a deal. There's no way you're putting tariffs on our cars. and it's they get stuff from us too. I think people forget that it's not a one-way thing. So I think trade will continue, and we'll work it out. But
would you say coronavirus has kind of helped us in a sense, because now those companies have been put under financial pressure? They're probably earning less through the pandemic. Like not many people are going out and buying a new car. Well, I mean, some people are, but do you think that's almost helped us in a sense that they want to make a deal in order to protect like trade assets with the UK?
Yeah, I think especially in the poorer countries, like you mentioned Greece before, they're really on the ropes economically as it is, and coronavirus is going to hit them even harder. So I think they will be desperate for someone to say, look, just please let us trade with them. However it is, please just let us trade. We need some money coming in. So I think that's what's going to happen. But a little segue Luke put us into, though, is the US election, with Biden being called by all the major news networks as the winner. So obviously we all kind of stopped up to watch it. Luke, what time did you go to bed, Luke, in the end? Was it about 3?
I went off the call at 3. Actually ended up going to bed at 4:30.
4:30. Wait, Harry, what time did you go to bed? I think you were up quite late.
First night I planned to go to bed I only went to bed at 2, I think. But I planned on getting up early, and I did about 8.
Yeah.
Thought, alright, yeah, I'll get up and then probably the end of it, because I thought voting would take a while. I didn't think it'd take like from a week or
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, once Florida was won, I thought this is it. It's all looking good for Trump. And to be honest, there are a lot of close states. Yeah. It's not been a Biden. Obviously he's winning quite ahead on the Electoral College, but in the states that he has won, a lot of them are close. Obviously, California isn't close, but Trump gave him a good run for his money in a lot of states. I think part of the problem is, I saw an interesting article as well. It was about Florida and how it's seen as now a more conservative state than it should be. But I think it's the amount of campaigning Trump did in Florida was enormous.
I think it's kind of the argument from 2016. It was the argument in 2016 that Hillary lost because she didn't go to places like Michigan. She thought she could just win it because there were Democratic safe seats, and she didn't go. And she thought, well, I'm just going to win it. And Biden, he went to Florida a couple of times, but when he did, he just played Despacito on his phone. And it's people going, well, nah. And I know Trump was down there a hell of a lot. He did a big, I think it was an NBC or ABC interview that he did after his tax returns thing came out. He did that down there. His son was down there a hell of a lot. And I think things that we were talking about on election night, it turns out ex-Cuban and ex-Venezuelan patriots don't like socialism, as it turns out. So, I think Trump's probably opened up a bit of a new market, in my opinion, for that vote. I think it kind of creates a new kind of Republican stronghold in a way. Because, one thing you can take out of it is that no matter which way you push it or pull it, the polls were wrong again. They had Biden leading in all these different states. And, well, I think the poll averages were something like Biden was going to win by 7 to 10 points nationally. And even if he technically has won now, if all the court cases are done and it's still the same, he's only going to win by 2. And, to think Trump's had 4 years of, Russian, the Russians did him last time. They helped him win. Impeachment, coronavirus, racial unrest, 90% media coverage that's negative. And he still only lost by 2. I think that shows that the Democrats really had the work cut out, to be honest, for me.
No, I agree with you, to be honest. Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. There was a lot of areas where I think the Trump presidency was good. I won't say it was amazing, but I think he did a lot of good. And there are a lot of areas, like you said, media coverage, where I agree with you on, where so it's deals and pretty much brought a lot of peace to the Middle East. Hardly anyone knows about that because no British media is reporting that. No major American media is.
Serbia and Kosovo that he got trade deals with, which seemed unheard of a few years ago.
I think that's another one people forget. Because when I put on TikTok, I put a couple of videos on TikTok, and but I've seen people saying, well, there were no peace deals in the Middle East because UAE and Bahrain never went to war with Israel. It's like, but you don't understand the historical context of it. To get an Arab nation in the Middle East to recognise Israel is huge. Just opening up diplomatic ties. Most of the countries around there don't recognise Israel as a state. So just to get a couple of them to say, yeah, we recognise you as a state, that's huge. And like you said, Luke, Kosovo and Serbia, 20 years ago, they were murdering each other in genocide. And now they're signing deals together at the White House. I think, like I said, people overlook stuff like that. So, I don't know. Well, obviously, Harry, we were up all night, obviously going back and forth with the different things with voter fraud and whatever.
Yeah.
All different. What do you think to that? Do you think he's got a case?
There's a slight case of it, but I don't think a recount's going to help, because even if votes have come in through the back door, or the people counting the votes themselves are just ticking boxes for Biden, a recount's not going to help. Do I think the DMC have, paid a lot of money to get voters, to get a lot of votes for Biden in swing states? I don't think so. But I think a lot of, I don't know, they might have funded a little bit, but it's one of those ones where I'm completely on the fence, because you see a lot of information about it, like dead voters voting for Biden.
Yeah.
But that could just be individuals acting out their own, because there was so much anti-Trump rhetoric that had created this passion against him on the left, which could have forced people to go out and do their own thing, Yeah. And to be fair, Trump didn't help his case by saying, march into election things. He should have, gone through the proper channels, I guess, and not told people to rock up to polling stations. So it's a mixed bag, to be honest, but I think there probably was some element of voter fraud. Do I think it probably swung the election? I doubt it, but possibly.
What about you, Luke? I know you've
I'm
seen
on the fence, to be honest.
It's tough. I don't think he has a case. A bigger case is what it could have been to win the election. I think it's just he's got to accept the vote. There are a few examples of where, obviously, the backdoor voting and all that. But even if it is, I think Biden probably would have won it anyways. But yeah, I think that with the male voters, I think they appeal to the Democrats a lot more. So they were always going to go to Biden. But yeah, I don't think Trump has a very solid case to fight in court. He's already been laughed out of a few states of their courts. For example, Georgia got laughed out there basically within an instant. But look, as someone I wanted Trump to win, I'm just accepting the result and taking the L. I'm going to keep an open mind on Biden. I'm not. It's like you'd be a bad mind to want him to fail. I want him to do well, but I'm just not hopeful.
I agree with both of you. I think there's individual instances of voter fraud and maybe some computer glitches, but I don't think it's enough to swing the election. I think, like you said, Harry, I think, the voting by mail helped Biden. It gets people who weren't going to go out to vote to actually vote. And it's always going to swing the other way for Biden. So, I agree with you, Luke, as well. Someone who wanted Trump to win, I think it's kind of, we just leave it now and we just kind of say, yeah, look, he won. But I think it's a bit, as well, it's a bit strange. You see people on the right being lectured to about, the elections were fair, they were fine, there's no fraud, whatever. By the same people who've said for 4 years that Trump stole the election via Putin. And it was the Russians.
I also said it as well, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the Russians who stole the election from Hillary. So,
there was pretty wild accusations as well, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's like, look,
I think the FBI should investigate it.
Oh yeah, look, you had your Mueller investigation. You spent $40 million on an investigation. You had yours. Let us have ours. It's one each then, isn't it? But yeah, I think we've kind of just got to sit and accept it and go, look, Biden's president-elect, so we've got him for the next 4 years. So, but going on from that, Harry, how do you see Biden's presidency going? What do you think? What do you expect?
Fairly uneventful. I don't know if we'll see much like defunding of the police or anything major like that. I don't know if that'll get through, Congress or anything like that. I know his tax plans are pretty major as well, for the rich. Again, I think if he gets those through, you'll see the general public's reaction. I mean, you don't really know how get a sense of it off from the election because the polls are all wrong. Biden won, but you don't know if it was a Trump loss that handed him the election, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or if it was Biden's, which I doubt because he's not that much of a candidate. I don't think anyone on the left praises him as the best presidential candidate in the world. I see him the next 4 years. It'll be fairly uneventful. There'll be the odd thing, but it's hard to say, to be honest.
It'll just be like Obama's last 4 years, I think, because obviously I think the Congress has gone mostly to the Republicans, who won't let Biden do his major tax cuts or his major tax to the rich. He won't do his Medicare. The funding of the police wasn't even in Biden's I don't think it was even in his manifesto or whatever. It was just from the lefty nutters from the Democrats. They wanted to defund the police, but it's never going to happen. So, yeah.
I think we'll wait and see, to be honest. I'll be interested in his foreign policy as well, whether or not he bombs the shit out of the Middle East again.
I think that's dead certain. I mean, Trump's the only president in recent history not to take the US into a new war.
See, the problem is with the US and, the Middle East, they constantly play it like a game of chess, like a traditional war, where it's we take this city, then we liberate the minds of the people. They'll all want to be westernized. You have to play it as game of checkers. You need to hunt down specific individuals. And the biggest thing is building up the infrastructures in those countries, building up the police, stuff like that. Because the only way to properly stomp out terrorism is through police. Look in the UK, how much anti-terrorist resources our police spend.
I think that was the mistake in the early 2000s with things like the Iraq War, which was, it's right, we're going to go in there and we're going to take out Saddam Hussein. Right, what next? And then people like Bush was well, we're not in the business of nation building. It's well, he just fucking took out their entire structure, and it leaves a power vacuum. And then what happens years later? You get the rise of ISIS when the Americans start pulling out. And it's well, what did you expect to happen? You left a power vacuum. Someone's going to fill it. And I think the Middle East is very, very difficult. It's still very quite tribal, especially even along religious lines, even between Sunni and Shia Islam. Just to name but a few. And obviously, border clashes don't help. And obviously, we created that. Things like after the First World War, we basically sat them down, back of an envelope, ruler and a pen, went, right, you live here, you live here, you live here. With no real thought to, what ethnic groups live there, what are the historical things, whatever. So, but I think Middle Eastern policy will change, I think. I know Trump's, I think, number one for actually drone strikes, but whether there actually were more military campaigns in the Middle East, I don't know. Well, I don't think Biden would maybe take him into Syria, because that's the only place I could see anything kicking off. Because, obviously, Obama took US military into Libya to take out Gaddafi. But I think that would be interesting. And then I think the thing that will change is North Korea, to be honest. Because, obviously, Trump is friends with Kim Jong-un. He even says it himself. He's friends with him. So I think...
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman. Do you know, before actually I came on this, me and Alex were watching The Interview. The film with him. And I was telling Alex, she was like, what, does he actually like basketball? I was like, yeah, he's best mates with Dennis Rodman, who used to play with Michael Jordan, for the Chicago Bulls. But I think the North Koreans will start piping up again, mate. I think
probably
they'll start doing new.
It's ironic because Biden's more left wing. Something they probably agree with, but I don't think you'll see an improvement of USA-Korean relations.
I think it's another thing that's overlooked as well. I mean, yes, okay, yeah, he called him Rocket Man at the UN, and then when Kim Jong-un's saying, well, I've got a nuclear button, Trump's tweeting him back going, yeah, I've got a bigger one. So, and then in the end, they go and meet each other, and Trump's the first Western leader to ever, walk over the North Korean line, and actually go and meet him in person. And it was kind of a de-escalation in tensions and whatever. but I think they'll start kicking off. But what about you, Luke? What do you see to his foreign policy? Do you reckon?
So, like I said earlier, I think with like countries like the UK, France, especially with France, because I think Macron and Biden get along well, policy-wise, I think they get along quite well, like kind of synergise with each other. But I don't think that anything will happen in terms of like the UK. I think our relationship will still stay the same. It's just obviously the question that will he kick off in the Middle East? Will he kick off with North Korea? I think relations will deteriorate with North Korea. I think in the Middle East, I think it'd be stupid to bomb them, to be honest, or bomb the shit out of them, because not really much has happened in like 1 or 2 years. But I think the main thing to look out for is North Korea.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't have that relationship that Trump has with Kim Jong Un. We'll just have to wait and see, I think.
Yeah. So, interesting thing, I think, then, to close it off, because obviously we've done the main ones, coronavirus and US. So you mentioned Macron in there. Obviously, there are a lot of things that are happening in France at the moment based on freedom of speech. So obviously I want to ask you to, kind of what are your opinions on kind of what's happening over there with the cartoons and the insulting of the Prophet Muhammad. What do you two think? Luke, I'll start with you. What do you think on the whole situation?
Well, it's been shocking what's happened in France with the beheading of the teacher and various terrorist attacks that have actually happened in France. I think it's their country, it's their laws that should stand, not Sharia law. Maybe in Saudi Arabia that'd be maybe acceptable. I'm not too sure, but in like a Western civilization such as France, you can't. There's no place for that at all. I think in terms of freedom of speech, you can say what you want. Just be willing to take some criticism if it is quite an extreme view that you've got. But obviously, it should never lead to the killing of someone. Never. So, but yeah, that's my view on freedom of speech.
What about you, Harry?
Yeah, sorry. For me, there's a huge difference. Well, I don't know a huge difference, but there is a difference between freedom of speech and freedom to insult. I think when you're making a cartoon to specifically insult like a prophet like Muhammad, you have to be incredibly careful with what you do. Make sure it's for the right comedy intentions, that it is not just for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? Which is that it's hard to draw a line to insult someone's god or prophet. But I think obviously I'm not going to condone the reaction by Islamic extremists to behead people. So I think it's an incredibly fine line you got to walk. I think freedom of speech is something that should be always protected, but there's that line I think you got to be wary of insulting someone and voicing your own opinion. And if it does come off in an insulting way, or it is meant to be for comedy purposes, I mean obviously an Islamic extremist isn't probably going to want to debate, but make sure you're ready to debate that point, and you better have a good argument.
I think for me personally, the freedom of speech encompasses the freedom to insult, and that kind of the thing of taking offence. Because I know people saying, well, you're offending 1.8 billion Muslims across the world. And for me, freedom of speech encompasses the freedom to be offended. There is no right not to be offended. To me, there is a right to say what you want. As long as, to me, you can say what you want as long as you don't directly incite violence, i.e., go hit that person, go kill this group, whatever. Because I think you can take it to another logical extreme where, if, say, you're in China and say you're part of the Uyghur Muslim population, and the Chinese officials are saying, okay, we're going to ban your religion, and you're saying, no, I want to say what I want. I want to say, do what I want, preach what I want. And if something you preach, offends the Chinese government, well then there's 1.2 million of them in concentration camps. To me, on that other side, it's your freedom to offend anybody. Obviously, like you said, you should be able to back up your points. But to me, you get very close to blasphemy laws, And I think, the French rule is that it is a secular nation. There is a separation of church and state. And like Luke said, if you want those laws in Saudi Arabia, fine. But, France is a secular nation. And it's not just, I think, I know some people are saying, well, it's just an insult of the Prophet Muhammad. And it's like, I don't think it's necessarily that. I give the freedom for them to insult, Jesus Christ. I think as long as it's not necessarily targeted and it's just, you're not poking
like made in poor taste, or
I think as long as you're not doing it necessarily to. I mean, you have the right to do it. But as long as it's not just directly at one group, and like Jimmy Carr says, he offends everybody. I think you should be allowed to offend everybody.
Especially when it comes to comedy or something like that,
Yeah.
You can't really censor it. You listen to like Joe Rogan or someone talk about that. They talk about like Joey Diaz after the Me Too movement, and he's like, "Oh well, it's just not going to affect me because how I am. I just insult everyone." Like that's part of their comedy.
Yeah, I think.
And then you put certain restrictions on that. It's just going to not make them funny and then put them out of a job, I guess.
I think that's the thing. I think comedy itself comes from a place of things that you shouldn't laugh at. Like, things that you think, oh shit, I shouldn't laugh at that, but it's funny. Like Gav makes 9/11 jokes all the time. Like, obviously, it's a horrific incident, but some of the jokes you go fucking hell, and you laugh. But I think comedy is one of the things that can actually bring people together. To me, as long as I think it's a way, especially that lads bond, especially they just like banter and ripping each other. I think that's just one way that kind of barriers kind of get torn down in a way, but I don't know. That's just my opinion on it, anyway. So, other than that, I think we've gone through all the different topics. I think that are on the table today. Anyway, is there anything else, Harry, that's on your mind or that you're interested in? Anything you've got?
Just want to ask you, how do you think Biden's going to handle, Iran? We almost had that World War III and all that. I mean, if you look at Biden's previous, like I said earlier, bombing, do you reckon we'll see anything flare up with Iran? If anything else happens, like another plane shot down?
Luke, go on. I'll let you answer that one first.
Like I said earlier, it depends. I'm not too sure. I think we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully not. Hopefully they maintain relations as they are now. But it's a different presidency. It's a different set of ideas. Different set of different manifesto. First of all, so I'm not optimistic. That's all I'm going to say about that.
From my perspective, I see Biden re-entering the Iran nuclear deal and causing up a bit more to the Iranians. And I kind of see, because Trump's deals coming out of the Middle East with the deals with Israel and the UAE and Bahrain, they don't necessarily come from a place of them just deciding, oh, we're going to become friends now. It comes from the Iranians becoming more of a regional power, thanks to people like Obama and the nuclear deal, because it allowed the Iranians, it allowed them access to $50 billion in, liquid assets, $400 million in cash flown on a cargo plane to Tehran. At the same time, yes, it limited stockpiles of the uranium, but at the same time, it allowed the Iranians to develop their intercontinental ballistic missiles, like the Shahab 3 missile. So it's like, all right, yeah, you're allowing them to not have nukes for, the uranium for 10 years, but at the same time, they're building the missiles that the nukes are going to go on in the end. But anyway, I think the Iranians will become more of a regional power. I think he'll lift restrictions, and I think indirectly you'll see other, because the Iranians are Shia Muslims, you'll see a lot of the other Sunni Arab states, kind of your Lebanons, your Jordans, them, that kind of lot. I think a lot of them will side more with the Israelis and say, look, we might not necessarily like Israel, but we don't like you even more. So it's kind of, I think you'll see kind of an alliance form in the Middle East, kind of. I think if the Saudis ever said to the Israelis, look, we're on your side, because I think you could start, to me, a Middle Eastern arms race where you could get Iran building up weapons kind of getting their economy back on the feet and getting more powerful, and that the Saudis aren't going to take that. So I think they'll start to form alliances with people like Israel. So I think in the end it could, in a weird way, it could end up to a Middle Eastern peace, but just Iran's on the outside, and the Iranians are kind of just on their own. But I don't necessarily think there'll be tensions between the US and Iran. I think it'll just ramp up tensions between the rest of the Middle East and the Iranians. But that's my opinion. Luke, you got anything burning on your mind? You got any topics?
I don't. No, I think we've gone through everything that I wanted to talk about, or what we wanted to talk about, anyway. So
yeah, I think we've gone through everything. Harry, you got anything else?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Right. Yeah. I haven't got anything else. I think we've gone through everything as well. So.
It'd be good to be back, anyways.
Yeah, it's good to. Like I said, we're going to do more. We are going to do more podcasts like this. All over Zoom, and we are trying to get more people on. So hopefully, it should be a bit more of a regular upload schedule instead of every couple of months. So obviously, it's easier doing it via Zoom. So, but no, thanks Harry for coming on anyway. Being our 10th guest.
No worries.
Nice to have you on. And we'll probably have you back on in the future anyway if anything changes. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, guys, for watching. If you have watched to the end, and we'll see you next time. See you later.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.